Klein, yes, the journalist and author. Her latest book is called Shock Doctrine, The Rise of Disaster Capitalism. You can go to our Facebook page and you can post questions there for her and just continue to participate in the dialogue. Let me ask you a question that came to us from Facebook. This is a question about the Madison protests for you, posted on our Facebook page. Kelvin Williams asks, are there any specific ways that Wisconsin workers can use the ideas in your book, The Shock Doctrine, to go on the offensive and force true fiscal responsibility, perhaps even rolling back the compromise contract?
It's a great question. I think what's finally starting to happen, and this is, Wisconsin's really been going from one victory after another, and this started off with an attack, but people have just found such incredible reserves of resolve and dignity and collective history that the ground is shifting. So the situation under which those compromises were made, those concessions were made, it's changed. People are feeling their power and their possibility.
I mean, it's amazing now. The governor, who was just elected, Scott Walker, a few months ago, is now, his popularity has dipped to the 30s, and even the conservative newspapers are asking serious questions.
Yeah. I mean, he clearly made a real miscalculation. I mean, what was obvious is that he was really playing to the national stage. He's clearly a very ambitious guy. He's got real national political aspirations. I think that's clear. He, in that conversation with fake David Koch, the prank call, he compares himself to Reagan. He compares his actions to Reagan's firing of the air traffic controllers. And that sort of shot heard round the world moment. That's what he wanted, and he is not getting that.
And then he said, first he fired the PATCO strikers, and then the Berlin Wall came down. He made that link.
He said it, and it's not a crazy link in the sense that it was part of a frontal assault on labor and the left, and it continued for many, many years. But it's not the 80s anymore, and people are onto these tactics. And I do think, just coming back to that question, that it is possible. But the real key is that we have to be having the debate about where the money should be coming from. I mean, if there is a fiscal crisis, and in Wisconsin, there's a crisis that was created by tax cuts, and this is why there's so much outrage, because it comes back to that false claim that there's shared sacrifice here. There isn't shared sacrifice here. There are gifts that are being handed out to the elites. Scott Walker is governing based on this radical free market ideology that if we just create the perfect, most hospitable, most gentle, less demanding conditions for corporations to do business, then we'll have a booming economy and it will trickle down and everyone will benefit. And that is exactly the ideology that Obama campaigned against and won, saying, we can't keep giving more and more to the people at the top and waiting for it to trickle down. And that was a message that really resonated with voters. One thing I wanted to come back to that I was starting to get at earlier about why what's happening in Wisconsin is happening in Wisconsin and what we need to take from it is that when bad things are happening, it's helpful to have a bad guy. And Scott Walker's a good bad guy. And he has galvanized progressives and people that people have an enemy to organize around and to point out these disparities. It hasn't happened at the federal level, despite the fact that Obama is also involved in attacking labor rights with his pushing of charter schools and draconian budget cuts. He's not a good bad guy for progressives. So we're still in a situation where Obama is getting away with, in my opinion, shock doctrine style tactics because people still don't want to believe that Obama is doing it too. So when you have, an easy bad guy Republican governor who's obviously trying to be the reincarnation of Ronald Reagan, you can mobilize the left. But it won't just work if we are only going after the Republicans and if this is fought along just partisan lines as opposed to being fought based on principle. No matter who is doing it, we need to be mobilizing. If it's Obama, if it's Scott Walker.
And the people that President Obama surrounds himself with, especially when it comes to the Wall Street insiders, especially as we move into the 2012 election, when it said Obama will raise more than $1 billion for the presidential election.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of denial still about who Obama is, but and who he surrounds himself with. And you know, we're going to talk a little bit later about Tim Christopher, but I've said it many times. Obama is fundamentally a centrist, and I do think that when there is a mobilized progressive movement in the United States that is putting pressure on him, on Democrats in Congress, they will respond. And that's another lesson that we can take from Wisconsin. You know, I was talking once again to John Nichols the other day, and you know, he said what's really working here is that we have the inside-outside pincer, right? You've got people in the streets, but you also have Democratic lawmakers willing to put themselves on the line, being surprisingly courageous, leaving the state and blocking it. So it isn't just the people in the rotunda. It isn't just the protesters at the rally. It's a kind of a partnership that's going on. Why is that happening? Well, they looked out the window and they saw their voters in the streets really committed and really mobilized, and that gave them courage. And that's something really important to remember about how, you know, so many liberal groups are involved in this gentle backroom lobbying, a token protest here and there, which says I'm willing to spend a couple of hours on a Saturday, but I'm not really willing to fight to win. And what's going on in Wisconsin is something very different. It's not, you know, just a rally on a Saturday afternoon. It is people really upending their lives for weeks and weeks and weeks on end. That sends a message to politicians who want to get reelected that this is a big issue, a top priority. And they hear that.
We're talking to Naomi Klein, author of The Shock Doctrine.